Thank you for staying with us. Before we went on break, we're talking about the call for a new people-centric constitution by a group of Nigerians called The Patriot. And in the studio with us talking about this is a lawyer and public affairs analyst, Fred Nzako, who went back in history, how far we have come to this point, how many times we've tried to tinker with the constitution, and if really that is what Nigerians, what the challenge is, or the fact that we need a body of laws that can move Nigerians to where they should be. That was, I think, your last statement before we went on the break. Now, the Patriots are calling for a people-centric constitution that recognizes our plurality, as they call it. If we are talking about that, we need to break it down to really, for Nigerians to understand, what do we mean by people-centric? What is that reflection that will tell us that, oh, this constitution is actually people-centric? And can we even have something that will benefit everyone as a country?
You know, the 1999 constitution which you operate has been criticized as being a body of lying documents, that the preamble on its own.
We the people.
We the people has told a lot of lies, because there was never a time we the people came to make that constitution. But there was a Constituent Assembly that led to that in 1998. The challenge there is that after the Constituent Assembly has packaged the draft and handed over to the military now set up a small panel to review and release a white paper on that constitution. And I just believed that it is that military panel that went and tinkered with some of those things that would ordinarily have led us to where we want to be. And therefore, that the constitution on its own is a lying document, because we the people didn't come close to making of the laws. And that is why the Patriots have advised that Mr. President set up an assembly of the people. They looked at about 109 people to be selected or to be elected, from all the strata of the society, to draft a people-centric constitution. And what is people-centric? A constitution that will take care of the plurality of Nigeria. Nigeria is a nation, or is a country of diverse nationalities. Over 200 ethnic nationalities, speaking over 250 languages and language groups. So that such plurality will help recognizing the diversity of Nigeria in our lawmaking process, will help move the country forward. It's an argument, because some people even criticize the Patriot and saying the problem is not in the constitution, that the problem is in the implementation. But if the problem is in the implementation, for example, is the paper itself to be implemented, does it give what should move us forward?
Does it reflect the people's centricity that we're talking about?
Does it reflect the plurality and diversity of our nation? The Patriots believe that examples of countries like India, with huge population and diverse nationalities, that they have managed their own plurality through the making of their laws. Also, a country like Canada, of course, we call that Anyaoku was Secretary General of Commonwealth for years. So he knows what he's talking about when he talks about countries that were under the Commonwealth of States. So a country like Canada managed their diversity and their plurality, and they came up with a constitution that is moving the country forward. And he also gave a negative example of Czechoslovakia that could not manage their diversity, and they had to break into Czech and Slovak Republic, and Yugoslavia that fought wars and broke into fragments of countries, Serbia, the rest of Montenegro, all of them that were initially Yugoslavia. And he now came down to Africa. That the challenge with Sudan is the challenge of lack of management of the plurality of the people. So if you now look at all those examples, you bring it back home. What has made Nigeria to be decaying by the decade? Because from experience, every decade gets worse progressively. The only thing that improves in Nigeria is population, corruption, and bad governance.
Really?
That is the only thing that improves in the country. If you look at critically the issues of human development indices, the welfare of the people, life expectancy, economic development, and the real core human growth and development, you see that Nigeria gets worse by the decade. The 60s were better than the 70s. The 70s were better than the 80s. The 80s were better than the 90s. And continuously, it keeps going like this. And today, as we speak, we are even remembering some few years ago and saying, wow, can we go back to the era of some few years back? It is the structure that is not allowing this country to move. And that is why you will not, if you want to criticize the patriots, you will have to be very considerate that if the people have not been able to implement what we have, how do we make them to implement it? How do we make the document to be to help itself? Because the 1999 Constitution does not help itself. Today we are talking about, in the news today, the jumbo salaries of National Assembly, and the guys are saying, sorry, the honorable members are saying, we didn't fix it.
Yes.
That it was fixed by the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission. The commission said, we did not. So who now fixed it? Some of these loopholes are being capitalized on by the human beings that implement the Constitution. And then the patriots are looking at a situation where we can screw up the knots and tighten the loopholes. But if we now go back in history, is there anything wrong by bringing all the various reports of the various constitutional conferences that we've had since 1960 to date?
That's a big question.
And then look at all of them, sift through and take away the juice and the ingredients and try to see how we are going to juxtapose it with the current structure that we have. I've always maintained that this 6 geopolitical structure that we have is very fertile for us to engineer our political arrangement. Instead of having 36 states, we can have 6 administrative states. Call it whatever you call it regions, call it states, call it zones, but it will shrink the bloated bureaucracy of government, because that has been identified as one of the causes of retardation in Nigeria. Because while the population is increasing, the productivity is not increasing commensurately. And that is why if you now bring productivity with population, the population keeps swallowing the productivity. And that it looks as if Nigeria is not making any progress. And of course, Olympic Games is on now, coming to an end. Nigeria has not got a single bronze.
Is it because of this?
I am telling you, it is part of lack of coordination in our system. If you look, you see, little examples will tell you how deep. They say the money makes the day. Little examples will tell you how deep the failure of Nigerian system has become. Because a country that does not have patriotic citizenry, a country that does not have assured hope for the youth, a country that does not have justice, equity, and fairness cannot grow. How do you now bring out all these fine ingredients? Look, the growth of a country is not in flyovers or roads. No. It is the human capital that makes a country. It's not even the natural resources. Because if you juxtapose...
I am wondering how this has hampered the...
I will tell you how. Yes, I will tell you how.
The Olympics.
I will tell you how.
Because the minister has come out to apologize still.
What did he say? What reason does he have? The simple fact is that Nigeria is not moving well.
Is that what hampered the performance?
That is, it keeps hampering everything that we do. Everything. In government, in sports, in social interaction, in everything that we do. Go to the embassies and see how Nigerians are treated. It tells you that the rest of the world has left us behind. People like Anyaoku and his group, who have international exposure and know that Nigeria can do better. That is why they keep crying and they keep...
Are you saying there are no Nigerians who are still flying the flag of Nigeria high, who are doing well, despite all that you have mentioned?
Nigerians are doing well, but they are capitalizing on environment outside Nigeria.
No, you are saying there are no Nigerians within Nigeria.
Whoever that is doing well would have done better if the country was well run. And if you say, how do we run the country? You run the country based on the laws. If the laws themselves do not make for progress and development, you, the leader, will not do much. And that's why I sympathize with every leader, because there will be pressure on you. And you will now, in order to satisfy the people, you will convene a conference. The conference will come. It becomes like a jamboree. Even the military could not even give Nigeria the desired constitution. Otherwise, why is it that there is only the military government that have been able to create states, that are able to create local government, yet they are the people who came to power without the mandate and authority of the people. Those who have the mandate of the people have been unable to do anything tangible in terms of restructuring of the polity. And that is where the challenge lies.
All right. So what should be the best approach now? So for those who have said that, it's not reflecting some of the tenets of federalism, it's not also, focusing on major issues like resource control, equal resource control at this time. Perhaps we should be looking at an amendment and not a new constitution.
There has been amendments of the constitution, several amendments. And the amendments are more or less in patches. It's not like patching a cloth that has torn at several points. And as you stitch here, another side gets torn. As you stitch here, another side gets torn. And that's why people are saying, discard this cloth completely and let also a brand new one that will help us. Now, I have just told you that historical experiments in constitution lawmaking in Nigeria has not been successful, apart from the one that people had to come together in 1963 Republican Constitution. And the elders have looked at it and said, and seen the difficulty of bringing people together to agree on certain things. It is that difficulty that has quashed every attempt at lawmaking. The military will then come up with their own and force it down the throats of Nigerians. And then we now begin to say, this is not good enough. We have been in civilian democracy since 1999. 25 years down the line, we have not been able to, as a civilian-led people, to come up with a holistic constitution apart from this patch that has not helped. Now, if we want to come up with very major issues of restructuring, you are now talking about what kind of government do we run along through fiscal federalism? How do we share the resources of the country, or not even sharing? How do we make? Because instead of sharing, we should be talking about how do we improve and make the resources? How do we bake that cake? But today is only to go to Abuja and share the cake. It has been a problem. Then it has the issue of, do we need bicameral legislature? People have always argued about it, that it is a waste of time and resources that you have the Senate and the House of Reps. The American presidential system that we copied, we didn't copy their kind of style, the remuneration, and the true fiscal federalism that is inbuilt in their own system. We just went and copied the costly aspect of it, and it is causing problem in the land. Do we need to? Senegal had looked at their own and said we don't need to, and cancelled one, and it is working for them. Do we have that conscience and the strength, political will, to say we will cancel one and run with one? Can President Tinubu do it? That is a critical question. Going by the nature of Nigerian politics, can he do it? And that is why, you see, you don't throw away every shade of opinion. Some people have advocated for what they call benevolent dictatorship that will come and strengthen the issue and make sure that Nigeria is structured along the line of true fiscal federalism. But if you go through the historics and the trajectory of Nigerian constitutional lawmaking process, you will find it difficult to say this man can do that or the other man can do that. Nigeria is in a very terrible quagmire. Very terrible quagmire. So it needs a leader who will not mind any cost.
So you're saying
but strengthen the country along the line of
this change of the constitution, or having a new constitution, and all that you have said that reflects the interests of the people, cannot be done by this administration? Is that what you're saying? I'm
not saying they cannot do it. I'm only saying they need to brace up to be able to do it.
How do you mean? Quickly.
Brace up, forget any challenges that may come along the line, because challenges will come.
Like what?
Challenges of acceptance, challenges of agreement. But if I were to advise the government, I would say, don't go to begin to reinvent the wheel. Go and pick up all other constitutional conference reports. Set up a committee that will look at all of them and advise the government on the nitty-gritty. And the only thing you have to do, pass it to a referendum. It is only that referendum that will now give it the general mandate of the people. And then if that is the only thing this government will achieve in office and achieve it well, I can tell you the government would have reset Nigeria on the path of progress, growth, and development.
Let's also, forget some of the inherent issues like corruption. You also mentioned the issue of patriotism, which, to an extent may have, affected the implementation. And so if we are going to have a new constitution, some of these factors will still remain in place. How do we address that?
The major enabler for corruption in Nigeria is the unitary system. Unitary system in the sense that everybody is like a rat race, scramble for and the partition of Nigerians' wealth. Just like the way Europeans scrambled for and partitioned Africa in 1894 Berlin Conference. They had no love for Africa. They were only interested in what would come to their countries. The same way Nigerians of today are scrambling for national wealth and national resources.
So it's about personal interest.
And the creation of that wealth comes as a second fiddle. Does not take the upper consideration. But what do we get out of it?
So it's about personal interest.
And that is why, how can Nigeria be producing over 2.5 million barrels of crude every day, and only 1.2, 1.3 goes to government, and the other 1.2, 1.3 is stolen? Who does that? And how do you expect the country to grow?
Well, the government is saying they are addressing that, and we're going to hope for the best.
That is the rhetorics, and that is the semantics that you keep hearing one government after another.
We'll have to leave this conversation here now, because I know you can go on and on with this matter. Lawyer and public affairs analyst Fred Nzako, thank you for your time.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, still ahead on the show, will Niger, Mali, and